Have you ever wondered what happens when you just disappear from someone's life? I'm not talking about pulling back a bit. I mean totally disappearing. No texts, no phone calls, no contact. What would they really feel when you disappeared? In today's society, where people continuously think they can take others for granted, let's flip the script. Disappear, and I promise their world will fall apart. Welcome to the most valuable video you will watch today. If you've ever been in a relationship or a circumstance where someone has become too comfortable with treating you like an option, this video is for you. We're talking about something important today, what they truly feel when you just disappear from their lives. We will go over 9 strong emotional stages that they will go through once you disappear. And let me tell you, by the end of this video, you will realize why sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to disappear and never look back. If you're ready to discover your value and make people miss you like never before, drop a comment below with the words, "I refuse to be an option." Because by the end of this, you will never be one again. Stay with me until the end because there's a bonus 10th emotional stage they will feel, one you certainly don't want to miss. And if you're willing to change the way they perceive you forever, watch this video until the end. Now let's get started. Number 1. The pain of rejection. This is how it all starts. They never expected you to go away. Not really. In their thoughts, you were usually going to be there. You were the person who put in the effort, the person who made the arrangements, the person who cared. You were a person who they could rely on until you were not. When you go away, it's like striking them with a brick they never saw coming. You've certainly heard the saying, you never know what you've got until you lose it. That's precisely what happens when you go away. Let me make this clear. When you withdraw yourself from their lives, it's not only about the physical absence, it's about pulling away all that you represented, the comfort, the validation, the continual availability. They feel rejected, but it's not a superficial rejection. It's a profound personal pain because for the very first time, they realize they don't have control over you. People don't like accepting it, but when they think someone will always be there, they begin to treat them like a safety net. You become an option, not a priority. If you disappear, you snatch that safety net right out from under them, and that is when the panic creeps in. It is like free-falling. They thought they could take you for granted, and unexpectedly they are left wondering, how did I let this happen? How did I lose control? The pain of rejection strikes. How did I lose control? Particularly hard when you've been emotionally available. They took your devotion and your presence as granted. They thought you would always be there, regardless of what they did. Perhaps they even believed they were doing you a favor by having you around. That's the ultimate irony. They think they're giving you crumbs, but in fact you've been the person who was maintaining the relationship. This is what you need to understand. If you want to make them feel the pain of rejection, you cannot give them any notice. Don't inform them that you are leaving. Don't offer them an ultimatum, and especially don't beg for their attention. Just leave. Ghost them. When you leave without explanation, it strikes harder because they never saw it coming. It makes them reflect on their actions, but it also informs them loud and clear you are done being disrespected. When you disappear, never look back. They will feel the rejection, and believe me, it's going to affect them in ways they never imagined. Someone who they thought they had control over, the person who always stayed around no matter what, has just left the premises. Let them deal with the consequences. Number 2. The void of missing you. Here's when things get interesting. After the pain of rejection settles in, they begin to feel something else. Emptiness. They didn't know they would miss you. They certainly convinced themselves that they would not be bothered if you left. Yes, if they leave, I will just move on, they thought. But what transpires when you truly disappear? They begin feeling the void, and it's not just any void, it's the kind of void that gnaws at them. They keep up with their day doing the same things they have always done, but something is lacking. That is when they realize you were the person who added value to their life. You brought the vitality, the warmth, and the emotional strength, and now without you everything feels boring. You know, if someone takes you for granted, they think you are just a part of the background. They believe the dynamic between the two of you is replaceable. But here's the reality. Nobody else brings what you did to their life. They could try to fill the void with somebody else, but it's never the same. You provided a unique vitality, one that made their life easier, enjoyable, and more meaningful. The void becomes bigger with each passing day. Perhaps they thought they might divert themselves with someone new, or with their close friends. Perhaps they thought they could concentrate on work or devote themselves to pastimes to get over you. But guess what? The void lingers there, reminding them of what they have lost. It is a continual presence, eating away at them, since they never thought they would feel that way about you. Here's the irony. They didn't value you when they had you. They thought they could do better, or perhaps they thought you would always be there. But the moment you leave, everything changes. They start missing the small things, the conversations, the laughter, and how you made them feel appreciated. It's the simple, everyday moments that they suddenly desire, but you are not there to offer them any longer. When you go away, make sure you do it in a way that leaves no way for them to find you. Block them on social media, delete their contact, and make it difficult for them to casually check up on you. The more they realize they cannot reach you, the deeper that void becomes. Each time they think of you and try to contact you, only to discover that no trace of you remains, the void grows bigger. Let them dwell in that emptiness. And remember this: people don't value what they have until they lose it. Make them miss you. Make them feel the absence. The more they feel that void, the more they will begin to understand what you brought to their lives. Number 3. Overwhelming curiosity. By this moment, they are deep in the void and they begin to become desperate. Curiosity creeps in, and it's overwhelming. The big question in their thoughts now is, where are they? What are they doing at the moment? Who are they with? They get obsessed with knowing what is happening in your life, since they no longer have access to you. You're a mystery, and nothing is more disturbing than not knowing what is going on with a person who was once so close. In the modern age of social media, this stage is much more dramatic. They will be checking your Instagram, Facebook, and every online platform just to get a hint of what you're up to. But here's the kicker. You are not giving them anything. You have become dark. No updates, no news, no posts, nothing, and it drives them insane. Why? Because humans detest unknowns. As soon as you leave, their mind begins to go wild with questions. That is when their insecurity comes in. They begin wondering, have you moved on? Are you seeing somebody else? Are you better off without me? They can't stand not knowing, so they get hooked on trying to find answers. This is when they could even reach out to mutual friends, trying to acquire information about you. They will ask questions, but be too proud to confess they care. It's a painful sight indeed. Someone who thought they didn't need you stepping out of their way to find out what you're doing. The reality is that curiosity is a powerful feeling. Whenever someone cannot find the answers they want, their mind fills in the gaps. They will begin imagining you with another person, then imagine you happier and more content without them. That notion eats away at them every day. It develops from curiosity into an obsession. And here's the most important part. The less they know, the more they want to know. You become the specific thing they can't stop thinking about. To feed their curiosity, you need to become a ghost. Go totally off the grid. Never post anything that could offer them hints about your life. Let them wonder. Let them stew in their minds, trying to find out what's happening with you. Each moment they pick up their phone to check on you and find nothing, it will drive them closer to the edge. You own the power now, and their curiosity is your valuable asset. Never give them answers, give them silence. Number 4. Profound self-reflection. Now we are getting into dangerous territory for them. This is when the reflection kicks in, and it's not pleasant. After a few days or weeks of worrying about where you are and what you're doing, they ultimately turn inward. They begin asking themselves the difficult questions. Was I too distant? Did I drive them away? The regret begins sneaking in, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. Here's the truth. Most people don't want to admit that they have made mistakes. It's human nature. But when you go away, you push them to confront those mistakes head-on. Without you there to comfort them or soothe things over, they're forced to face their own behavior, and it's not a good experience. They begin to replay each interaction in their thoughts, asking whether they might have done something differently. They remember the moments they disregarded your text messages, the moments they brushed off your feelings, the moments they made you feel like an afterthought. And it strikes them hard because, in their hearts, they realize they have a great thing going but take it for granted. Now they're stuck with their own concepts, and those concepts are brutal. This stage is particularly powerful since it's internal. They cannot blame you anymore. You are not there to argue with or to make excuses for them. The only person they can blame is themselves, and that is a bitter pill to swallow. The self-reflection grows deeper as time passes. The more they reflect, the more they understand how much they messed up. The guilt develops, and they begin wishing they could go back in time and do things better, but it's too late to remedy that now. During this stage, don't reach out. Never try to explain why you walked away or make them see the mistake of their ways. Let them find out on their own. Self-reflection is the strongest when it happens inside. The more time they spend reflecting, the more they will realize that they were the reason why things went wrong. Let them sit with that regret. It's a valuable lesson they have to learn. Number 5. The desire to pursue you. Now that they have spent enough time in self-reflection, something moves inside them. They go from questioning themselves to wanting you back. The tables have turned. You were previously the person who put in all the dedication, who cared, who pursued. But now it's their turn. The desire to go after you gets overwhelming. They cannot stop thinking about you, cannot stop wishing to reach out, and cannot stop wondering whether it's too late to make things right. They will begin to send those "I have been thinking about you" messages. They will like old Instagram posts and perhaps comment on anything to see if you reply. They might send a late-night text after a few drinks, hoping to recover what was lost. Here's the truth. They are chasing you now. They have gone from taking you for granted to desperately needing you back. And this is when you have all the power. The desire to pursue you is strong, but you don't have to respond. You should not. Let them feel the desperation. Let them wonder whether you've moved on. The more they pursue, the more they will understand that they have lost control of the situation. They no longer have the upper hand, and that drives them crazy. When they begin chasing, never give in. The instant you respond, the power goes back to them. You have worked too hard to regain your worth, and now is not the time to give it away. Let them chase you, but don't reward their efforts. Silence is your best tool here. Let them experience the frustration of wanting something they can no longer get. Number 6. The struggle between relief and regret. When you first go away, they can feel a brief feeling of relief. It is that initial sensation of freedom. They convince themselves, "Finally, I don't have to deal with them anymore," and perhaps they even feel good about it. But here's the thing concerning this so-called freedom. It's an illusion. It feels exciting initially, but it's superficial and temporary. They go out, hang with their close friends, swipe right a couple of times, and for a short while they think everything's going to be fine. But as soon as they are alone, sitting in their quiet home or scrolling through their phone, that is when regret begins creeping in. They come to realize that freedom without you is truly empty. The people who they thought could replace you are only superficial distractions. It's like drinking salt water when you are thirsty. It feels like a solution, but it only makes them more dehydrated, more desperate, and more regretful. Furthermore, in today's world of casual dating and hookups, people usually believe that moving on will be just as simple as meeting someone new. But it's not. They quickly discover that you can't replace someone who gave you peace of mind and a meaningful connection with some quick fix or a pointless fling. And that's the realization that throws them flat on their back. Let them feel this freedom. Never rush back in. When they begin to feel guilty, let them dwell in that empty space they thought would feel so pleasant. Remember that the relief they first experience is temporary, but your absence will torment them in ways they never imagined. Number 7. The desire to play. The desire to play the game. Once regret creeps in, they panic. Now they want to deal with the situation, but they don't know how. So what will they do? They try to play games. They start behaving distant on purpose, trying to make you jealous, posting photos with others, which makes it look like they are content without you. Perhaps they post a cryptic status about moving on or taking a picture that's trying a bit too hard. It's all just one huge attempt to lure you back in, to make you wonder what they're truly up to. But here's the fact: you're no longer playing. You have outgrown the games. You've evolved beyond such childish behaviors, and you don't even notice their petty efforts to trigger a reaction. People believe that manipulation through jealousy or trying hard to get would make you chase after them. But what occurs when you've stopped chasing? When you've gotten tired of the game, they will throw everything at you: passive-aggressive comments, overblown comments on social media. But neither of them works. You are not giving them the attention they need. You're not indulging in their naive strategies. And that, my friend, is what makes them totally crazy. When they can no longer get a reaction out of you, they lose control completely. They are left flailing, grasping for something they can no longer control. Never engage. Ignore the mysterious posts. Don't respond to the photos. Their game only works if you play. The moment you stop responding is the moment they understand they have lost their control over you. Number 8. The crushing burden of silence. Silence is one of the most powerful instruments you can use. When you suddenly disappear, the absence of your words, your messages, and your presence speaks louder than anything you could say. It leaves them with nothing but their own minds. And here's when it gets rough for them. Because the silence is so heavy, so terrible, they begin to question everything. They begin thinking back to all the times they ignored your phone calls and all the times they were too busy to respond to your texts, and now they would do everything to hear from you. Silence is frustrating for someone who's used to having power. They expect you to reach out. They want you to ask what's wrong and beg for an explanation. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you go away and they have to remain there in the quiet, wondering whether they have lost you forever? They can't understand it. Each moment without a word from you feels like a whole year, and the longer it continues, the more anxious they develop. We live in a society of constant communication, messages, calls, notifications, and instant pleasure. Every person expects an instant response. If you don't give them that, they spiral. They are used to the chaos of a relationship, the back and forth, even the disagreements. But silence is shocking. Let your silence be your strength. Don't break it. Don't explain yourself. Let them experience the burden of their actions through the lack of your words. They will soon understand that losing access to you is much worse than any argument you might have had. Number 9. The fear that makes them crawling back. Here's when it all comes crashing down. Fear. This is the part they never imagined would happen, the moment when they're truly afraid of losing you. For a long period, they were comfortable. They thought you would always be around. They took your presence for granted, believing you were the one who would stay around no matter what. But now you've disappeared, and they are scared. The fear strikes them harder than anything else. They begin to think, what if I lost them forever? What if they have moved on to somebody else? The notion of being with a new person takes over their thoughts. They will imagine you laughing with someone else, building memories with somebody else, and the notion of it makes them sick to their stomach. They are no longer bothered about their vanity, their ego, or playing it cool. Now, all they can think about is bringing you back. This fear causes them to do things they said they would never do. They will reach out. They will apologize. Perhaps they send long texts explaining how they didn't value you before, but now understand how much you meant. Perhaps they show up at your residence unannounced, begging for a second chance. Everything they do is driven by one thing: the terrible fear they have lost you permanently. But here's the reality. By the moment they feel that fear, you're already gone. You have moved on. You have the strength and your freedom, and you don't need them any longer. Their fear is genuine, but it is too late. If they come crawling back, don't give them a second chance just because they are scared. Let them deal with the consequences of their actions. You've already moved on, and they need to realize that you are not an option to be taken for granted. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're already ahead of 99% of the individuals out there, and you've proven to be truly stoic, a person who seeks depth in wisdom and insight. For listening this far, here's a bonus just for you. Number 10. The realization of emotional freedom. This is when everything comes full circle. The realization of your own emotional freedom. When you go away, You're not only walking away from them, you are moving toward your independence, your own emotional clarity, and your tranquility. In lots of relationships, we become so caught up in making the other person happy or showing our value that we forget about our own needs. We forget that we have the capacity to choose, to walk away or make things better for ourselves. But once you've disappeared and retrieved your space, you begin to see things clearly. You no longer need their approval. You are no longer concerned about what they think or need. You've realized that your contentment isn't bound to them, and it's the most wonderful thing you can experience. Here's the greatest part. They feel it too. They understand that you're not the same individual they once knew. You're stronger now, smarter, and more confident. They can tell you have outgrown them, and that you no longer need them to feel complete. This is when the tables have turned forever. They are caught in the same old habits, but you've evolved. You have broken free from the loop of approval, and now your perspective means nothing. Own your emotional freedom. Don't return to the old ways. Don't give them the joy of believing they still have control over your contentment. You have moved beyond that, and that's your ultimate victory.